Dr. Fauci, you've talked from the beginning about vaccine equity, and we obviously still have a long way to go. What happened?
Well, I think we are making some significant headway. We started off with the equity issue when the NIH was very much involved in the clinical trials to prove the safety and the efficacy of the Moderna, the Pfizer, the J&J vaccines. We wanted to make sure that there was equitable representation of minorities in the clinical trials for a start, to show that when it's safe and effective, you can honestly say it's safe and effective in a variety of demographic groups. Once the vaccines received an emergency use authorization, we made it very clear that the implementation of the rollout of the vaccinations had to have equity as a primary consideration. And that's actually what's happening with the vaccine the vaccine community centers, the federally qualified vaccine centers, the pharmacies, the mobile units. All of that is geared towards making sure there's equitable distribution to minority groups, particularly brown and black people.
Dr. Fauci, what have we learned about vaccine development and distribution rollout that we'll need to know for, heaven help us, the next pandemic?
Well, I think it's doing a lot of what we did. And I think, as I mentioned a moment ago, you start off by making sure when you do the vaccine trials that you have equitable demographic representation in the trial, because you don't want a trial done only with one demographic group. There will always be the question, is it safe and effective? Once you get past that, then clearly you have to have a structure in which you pay primary attention to equity. And that was really what President Biden made as a very core part of the rollout of the vaccine distribution. And as I mentioned a moment ago, you do that by putting the availability of vaccines, be they in the vaccine distribution centers, the community centers, or in the pharmacies, you put it in geographic locations that are easily accessible to the minority groups. When you do that, you really take a pretty broad step towards equity in the distribution.
Dr. Fauci, this is a question from an Axios audience member in Denver. They ask, with the new guidance on masks, are you concerned about a spike in cases, hospitalizations, and how quickly will we know if that's going to happen?
Well, first of all, it's important, Mike, to understand what the new guidance on masks were directed at. It said that people who were vaccinated can now feel safe, that they do not need to wear a mask either outdoors or indoors. It did not say that people who are not vaccinated should abandon their masks. It said people who are not vaccinated should continue to wear masks and should get vaccinated. So I think people are misinterpreting, thinking that this is a removal of a mask mandate for everyone. It's not. It's an assurance to those who are vaccinated that they can feel safe, be they outdoors or indoors.
Last fall, of course, you issued an executive order to make Michigan carbon neutral by 2050. This is one of the most aggressive plans like this in the country. Then last month, around Earth Day, you set another really interesting target. This is for state-owned facilities to be on 100% renewable energy by 2025. That's, just a few years from now. And then finally, this week, you said that you will go after the profits of Enbridge, a Canadian energy company, if it continues to defy your order to stop operating one of its lines that runs through Michigan. So these are three huge issues, three big things. How did you decide on these approaches, and how do you think about how to achieve them without hurting Michigan's economy?
Well, on day one, we moved forward and joined the Paris Climate Accords. We wanted to make Michigan a leader where our nation had taken a step backwards. I thought it was important that the state show that this is something that we are committed to. We've been announcing lots of investment in Michigan through the big three, 11,000 jobs, which are manufacturing mobility solutions of the future. So electric vehicles, we're putting people to work. This is good for our economy. It's good for our climate change goals, and it's good for individuals seeking great jobs, and then protecting the Great Lakes. You know, we are defined by the Great Lakes in Michigan. The manufacturing came to Michigan because of the water. We've got to protect this water, and this pipeline going through the Straits of Mackinac is a ticking time bomb. And so all of these things are absolutely related, but we can be great stewards of our environment and keep people in good paying jobs all at the same time. It's not one or the other.
Well, I'd like to start by framing this problem of maternal mortality in the United States. Could you describe some of the disparities that we're seeing right now and what we know or don't know about what's causing this problem?
Yes. So in the United States today, Black birthing people are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than their white counterparts. And for every death, there are 70 near misses. So we have this dual crisis of maternal mortality and morbidity. And this disparity that we're seeing among African-American birthing people and to an extent as well, Indigenous birthing people, that's what's driving the United States' overall high maternal mortality rate. In fact, it's the highest in the developed world. And we've seen this high level of maternal deaths my entire lifetime, and I'm 34 years old. These maternal deaths are caused by many issues. In my state of Illinois, the leading cause of maternal death is substance use, overdose, and suicide.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about what role systemic racism is playing in this problem?
Absolutely. So, I'm a nurse, and when I was in nursing school, they would tell us about this maternal mortality disparity and say, there's just something about Black women. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with Black women. This is it's a healthcare system that has systemic racism in its foundation. And so what we are trying to solve is a problem where Black birthing people are not heard, they're not listened to, and there's these barriers in place on getting equal care and the best healthcare possible for the moms and the babies. And so that's really what this is about. I think that, some people are a little bit uncomfortable with this idea of a healthcare system displaying systemic racism in the way that ours does. However, there's no denying the fact that it's just really one group of people that continues to die. And this is a disparity that exists regardless of income or education. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your insurance status. It doesn't matter whether you got prenatal care, right? You can control for any of these factors. And still the disparity persists, right? There's no denying that racism is a key component.